Good afternoon, everyone. Today, we will continue with our fourth mentoring session with our wonderful Simon, who will be taking us through branding, labeling, certification, marketing for the fruit and vegetables for the UK market. Thank you very much for everyone. I will also introduce myself. I'm Jadranka Dervišević-Kitarić, Executive Director of the British Serbian Chamber of Commerce, which is bilateral chamber, UK bilateral chamber, based in London with a representative office in Belgrade. My colleagues Tijana, Tea, and Alex today with us. Richard couldn't join. He will be tomorrow at the fifth session. I wish you good luck with everything today and see you after the presentation. Simon, please.
Okay, well, good afternoon. Thank you very much, Jadranka. Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to meet you again. I look forward to seeing some of your faces maybe later on in the presentation. And as has been mentioned by Jadranka and Alex, do use the opportunity to ask questions, not just necessarily about this particular session that we're having, but also if you've got questions about routes to market and the commercial planning side of things, any aspects really, if you like, of doing business in the UK, that's what we're here for. We want to impart information to you, but also some of the most valuable things are when you have your own specific questions, and hopefully we can give you a bit of advice and insight. So I'm just going to open our presentation this afternoon. This time we will be talking about branding, labeling, and regulatory aspects of the of dealing in the UK market. So I hope that this will be some useful information for you. Inevitably, there's always more detail that we can't possibly share in the timescale, but let's hope that we at least give you a good starting point this afternoon. So I'm going to kick off by talking about labeling. Sorry, just move back a slide. There we go. So the first issue on labeling, I think, that you need to understand is that the UK may have left the EU. You're all aware about Brexit, clearly, but we still follow the same food and drink labelling regulations as the EU food and drink labelling regulations. So in order to see full detail, there's a web link there, and obviously you'll have a copy of the presentation given to you, so you'll be able to see that. But I'm going to summarize a few key characteristics of labeling this morning, rather than expect you to wade through all that information. If you are already exporting to the EU, clearly, then essentially you are probably doing the right thing in terms of labeling for the UK market. But if you're new to exporting to the EU or the UK, then hopefully we'll have some interesting information to share. So there are some special characteristics that apply to particular products. So, for example, you do have to put the place of origin for certain products. There are particular rules about what you need to put on the label if you're in certain food and drink categories, including fruit juice and honey, to name a couple where I know there are one or two producers. But ingredient and nutrition declarations, how you talk about allergens and so on, is all the same as it is for the EU. There's one difference to that, and that is that you do need to have on your pack the detail of a UK food business operator. So it's yet to become absolutely compulsory, but will shortly be introduced, because the government keeps putting back its timetable for that. But until Brexit, it was okay to have any location in the EU as the location of your food business. From now on, it will be necessary to have a UK business operator. So I guess in the first instance, the label, and these are part of the government requirements, this is the way that they word it, has got to be clear and easy to read, a permanent label, easy to understand, easily visible in terms of typefaces and fonts, not in any way misleading. There's basic information you need to show, and you will need to list the ingredients and some further information occasionally. The packaging itself, you've got to use packaging that's suitable for food use. And normally, if your packaging supplier would automatically have some guidance in terms of your pack that would cover that. So in terms of using plastics or cellophane for your packaging, for example. And if you need a declaration of compliance, you can get that from your packaging supplier, just to demonstrate that food's packaged for sale in any of those materials and that they're suitable for food products. So that normally isn't an issue to worry about. So the key things that you need to show first of all is quite simply the name of the food. I know that sounds obvious, but it does actually need to describe what the food actually is. The consumer shouldn't in any way be confused about what could be in the packaging. So don't assume that just your brand name, for example, will give the consumer enough indication of what the food actually is. So you need to describe the content that the consumer will find inside the pack. Secondly, a best before or used by date. Again, for certain product categories, best before is okay to say. So, for example, if you're selling eggs in the UK market, there isn't a specific use by date which is required by law, but you should give guidance to the consumers about when these are best to consume before. And essentially, the difference is that a best before date means that the product should be safe to consume a little bit after the best before date. It's not going to cause any toxic damage in any way, but they're encouraging you for maximum taste and freshness to eat before a certain timetable. A use by date is black and white. So this is specifically very important in chilled foods, and in the majority of foods do actually require to use a use by date, which gives a formal date by which you must, as a consumer, use the product. Clearly, some consumers will use their judgment and decide to go a little bit beyond that use by date, but it covers the manufacturer and the retailer in the case of any claim if there's any damage done by the product. And it should be all producers will, of course, work within a use by date which is comfortably within the best maintenance and freshness of the product. Third thing is any necessary warnings that you need to get across. So, for example, obviously allergen information will be some of the most important information that is absolutely critical that's put across now. A lot of attention is going on that in the UK market right now, especially in food service, because whilst it's been mandatory for some time to clearly describe allergens on the back of pack and to make them stand out clearly, I'll cover that in a second. Food service organizations and food to go organizations had been exempt from doing that on pack and making those references clear enough. That's now changed because of one or two high profile cases of sadly people consuming a product with an allergen and dying or suffering severe illness as a result of that. Net quantity information in grams on front of pack, in grams or milliliters. Assuming there is more than one ingredient, then a list of ingredients has to be on the back of pack. The country or place of origin. Now, the message here in terms of law is if required. So for certain food categories, including meat and shellfish and produce, it is required to say what the country or place of origin is. For standard packaged food products that most of you will be involved in, it's not necessary to say the country of origin. However, sometimes it can, of course, be an advantage to do so. So if your product has particular provenance, trends, authenticity, because it comes from your particular country or a particular region, then of course it's good to say that. And the other important thing to mention is that you must state the country of origin if there's a possibility that somebody could be confused about that. So example I often give is Dolmio pasta sauces, which are advertised on TV using very Italian family imagery, big Italian family around the table enjoying bowls of pasta and collecting the tomatoes from their own farms and so on and so forth. The final scene in that commercial says "Made in the Netherlands," because if they hadn't said "Made in the Netherlands" there, and indeed on their pack, they might be confusing the consumer to assume that that product was actually made in Italy. The lot number or use by date, as mentioned, any special storage conditions, again, if it's especially important, if it's chilled or frozen, and again, instructions for use or cooking if necessary. A lot of this is common sense, but clearly, if you're producing a packaged food which needs to be cooked in the oven or the microwave, you need to state exactly what temperature and how many minutes and so on. So country or place of origin, as I mentioned, it's mandatory if you're involved in any of the products listed on this slide. So essentially across the range of red and white meats, fish and shellfish, honey, on olive oil, if you like, as more specialty products, wine also, and fruit and vegetables. So that will cover many of you, but I'm sure you'd want to boast about your place of origin as well. The ingredients list, you've got to list them, and you should list them in order of weight, with the main ingredient going first. And if you've highlighted a picture on a package, or you've made a message about, for example, extra cheese, or you've mentioned the actual ingredient in the name of the product, then you should show the percentage of an ingredient. And the intention here is that if you're saying something's has got extra cheese, people will want to understand, well, how much cheese actually is in that product. So it's important to show the percentage of the ingredient content when you're describing the ingredients. Allergens, as I mentioned, this is critically important. You have to not only highlight the allergens on your label, you need to use bold or a different font or style or background color when you're doing that, and you list them both within the ingredients and also at the end of the ingredient list. In other words, you've got to show that you're doing everything in your power to make it abundantly clear to the shopper that your product contains certain allergens, and the particular allergens are listed below. Important that I've noticed recently with an oat drink product that they didn't actually highlight the fact that the product had oats in it, which is a cereal containing gluten. So people are perhaps more aware of certain allergens than others. People automatically think about nuts as an allergy or dairy as an allergy, but it's important to look at the full list and consider whether your product has any of these. Again, I'm sure for sale in your own local markets, this is a very similar scenario, but this is just to explain the background. Nutrition information, you have to add information about energy plus amount in grams of fat, saturated fat, carbohydrates, and sugars as part of that carbohydrate content, protein and salt. So you can also add to that nutrition declaration on a voluntary basis additional information. So for example, if you wanted to talk about the fiber content of your product, again, you don't have to, but if that's something that you feel is important to stress to the consumer, you can do that. If you've added vitamins or minerals in your product, again, you can do that on your nutrition declaration as well. So to give you an example, this is a dairy-free drink, and this is how they show their nutrition information and their ingredients information. You can see below the nutrition information, if you look at the ingredients, they've done it in a number of different languages, which is an efficient way to have a pack which suits a number of different markets. Within the ingredients, you can see that cashews and tiger nuts have both been highlighted in bold. Specifically, the amount of content has been shown as well, because because the product says that it's a cashew and tiger nut drink. So people will want to understand, well, exactly what is the cashew content and the tiger nut content of this particular drink. That's why they put the percentages of the ingredient in there, highlighted in bold, and a list of allergens will appear below that ingredient table as well, just to re-emphasize that point. And they're showing the key information. They've chosen to add fiber in their list there, as you can see, third from the bottom in the nutrition declaration. And they've put per 100 ml, which is important to show, which again is to allow the consumer to make direct comparisons between products. How many calories is this per 100 mils? Therefore, if I'm drinking half the pack, how many calories will I consume, etc., etc. So the point, I guess, just to summarize in terms of EU and UK, as part of labelling regulations, is that when the UK left the EU, as part of those Brexit arrangements, the UK has the authority now to diverge from these labelling regulations. So if that actually happened at some point in the future, then if you're a UK supplier, you'd have to adapt your you'd have to match the changed requirements if you wanted to sell in the EU, and the same would go vice versa, that anyone selling into the UK market, whether from the EU or elsewhere, would need to meet UK's actual requirements. So whilst that's actually possible in the future, it's certainly not happening now. There's no hint that it would happen. It would cause an enormous amount of disruption and in fact disadvantages to UK suppliers. So there's no real reason why the UK government might want to do that, let alone making life more complicated for anyone who wanted to sell just in the UK, because they'd have to adapt their pack purely for the UK market. So the one change I highlighted earlier on is that the need for a UK-based food business operator on the pack. Essentially, for most people, that would be the name of the importer. It could be a different operation depending on how you set up your business in the UK, but there needs to be a point of contact for the consumer, so that if there's any issue about food safety or complaints or even further information, they have a point of contact they can go to. So the timing of that implementation is actually scheduled from the 1st of January 2024. So it isn't quite yet in place, but it's due to be effective within the next year or so. And if you're involved in organic products, in the UK, there is a certifying organization called the Soil Association. Now they have an equivalence policy with all EU organic certifying bodies. So in other words, if you're based in the EU and you're selling organic products into the UK, then you can do that without a certificate of inspection. I'm not sure whether that's the case with Serbia or other Western Balkan nations at this stage. I couldn't see anything on the Serbia Organica website about that, but it would be worth contacting the Soil Association in the UK to determine whether there is recognition of the standards from wherever you supply your organic foods in the Western Balkan region. I'm just going to move on to look at branding now. So this is an example of, so I'll just go back one page. So this is an example of the importance of branding for the UK market. Now, obviously, I can't see any of your products right now to give you individual advice, but what I wanted to do is just make the point that branding, if you like, that's labeling is what is actually required on your pack in terms of the UK market. Branding is about how you actually ensure that you're seen and how you can effectively move off the shelf in the UK market. And this is an example of some healthy snacks which we've just looked at for another client of ours. So I thought it'd be helpful to show you some images. This is very much the modern style of branding within food and drink packaging in the UK. Now, clearly, it's different if you're looking for a more artisan product on the shelf in a department store, for example. But I guess the key thing across all aspects of branding is to have shelf impact. So to be seen very clearly, no matter where you are, what part of the market you're selling in, if you're not visible within a split second, and people aren't tempted to pick up your product, then it's very unlikely that you'll be able to encourage them to try out your products in the first instance. So all of these products here are in the highly competitive snacking arena, where you really do need to shout loud, if you like, about what you have to offer. So color, personality is important, very focused messaging. So you'll see in most of these, they're saying 1, 2, or 3 things maximum about their product, which might be about less fat, it might be about the fact that they are below a certain number of calories. So a lot of people are looking, for example, for snacks that are less than 100 calories per portion. It might be that they're gluten-free, etc. So these are the sort of key messages that they focus on, particular health benefits being emphasized here. Certification and standards and so on. We have an organization called Trading Standards, which is the monitoring body for all organizations, and they will actually determine whether a product is compliant or not in the market. So Trading Standards regularly review different products on shelf, but they're also the body that anyone will turn to, a consumer may turn to, if they feel that the product is in any way being misleading, or if for some reason they query the ingredients, or if they had a medical reaction to any of the products, they would alert Trading Standards, who may then take action against the producer. So Trading Standards have the power to basically withdraw a product from the shelf if they want to actually do that, if they feel that there's something wrong with it. We don't actually have a body in the UK, unlike in the USA, for example, where the FDA formally approves products that are on sale. We don't actually have that. So it's actually the responsibility of the food producer or the importer in the market, if you have a representative in the market, to ensure that the product meets the guidelines and doesn't breach them in any way. And if there is any breach there, obviously it's not just consumers who can report to Trading Standards. It could also be competitors who are, keeping an eye out about new brands that are hitting the shelf from time to time. So you've got to get things right, and it's important to get your labeling right first time, and to get labeling checked for the market before you actually launch into the UK. So if you are wanting to sell own label products into UK supermarkets, and we touched on own label, we call it own label or private label, either term works in the UK. We touched on that in our first mentoring session. Then there is a requirement to have BRC certification. So BRC certification is similar to ISO 9000 certification. It's a common standard system that all the retailers, by retailers I mean the big supermarket retailers, agreed to abide by when they're selling own label products. So if you're selling own label into Tesco or Sainsbury's or Asda, Morrison's, the stores we talked about in our first session, then they will require that you have BRC certification. So that link on the screen tells you how you can find out about the BRC certification, and in every country there are organizations who can help you get on board with the requirements of that and be audited so that you can have BRC certification if you want to sell own label products into the big supermarket stores. Now typically that's the minimum requirement that each of those retailers has, but they then carry out their own audits and have their own specific additional requirements too. And if you're a branded supplier, then your own certifications and standards will be something of interest. So in other words, BRC is not absolutely mandatory. If you're a branded supplier, it certainly helps because it's seen as the best standard to have by the UK marketplace. But you can supply Ocado, the major online retailer, other supermarkets, especially the independent retail, the natural, organic, health food channels. None of those will require BRC status, but they will expect to know exactly what levels of certification and quality standards you can demonstrate if you want to talk with them. Talking about some of the other regulations for certain sectors as well. So in recent years, the government's introduced a few regulations relating to health, essentially, because we have an obesity crisis in the UK. And they felt that attention needs to be given to the level of sugar, especially in certain products. And an example here is soft drinks. So what we call a sugar tax was introduced a few years ago. Essentially, there is a levy on soft drinks containing more than 5 grams of sugar per 100 milliliters. So if you're involved in soft drinks, and by soft drinks we mean carbonated soft drinks, it doesn't include milk-based drinks or fruit juices. So if you're in soft drinks but not in juices or milk-based drinks, then this could apply to you. There's a levy of 18 pence per litre if you're above 5 grams, but below 8 grams, and there's a levy of 24 pence per litre if you're above 8 grams of sugar per 100 millilitres. And essentially the motivation driving this was to remove sugar from the diet as much as possible. So any product which has had sugar added during its productions, it's bottle, canned, or otherwise packaged, so it's ready to drink or to be diluted, like what we would call orange squash. Fruit and vegetables without added sugar aren't included in the levy. And the effect is that the actual amount of sugar sold in soft drinks by retailers and manufacturers has decreased quite significantly by more than a third over the time that they monitored it, up until 2019. And the average sugar content of soft drinks has declined by over 40%. So basically what this means is that suppliers have been using other sweeteners, preferably natural, but also some artificial sweeteners, to avoid using sugar in soft drinks, and this has helped to address the issue. Similar to that, but slightly wider application, are products which are high in fat, sugar and salt, or what we're now calling HFSS products. So the government's introduced legislation to restrict some of the sales and promotional activity for these products. I won't go into the detail of this, but essentially products are given a score. They get some, if you like, negative scores for the level of calories or the amount of fat and sugar, etc., in their products, and they're then allowed to deduct that score with the healthier aspects of their product, so the percentage of fruit or vegetables and nuts, fiber and protein in their product. And any product with a certain score or above is designated an HFSS product if it's deemed to be unhealthy. So this can affect snack products, it can even affect cheeses, it can affect drinks and so on and so forth. And if your product is a high fat in salt and sugar behavior, you're not allowed to be placed in promotional zones within the retailers. From later on this year, you won't be allowed to do multi-buy promotions or have free refills for drinks. Bog off means buy one, get one free, or 3 for 2 promotions and so on. There'll also be bans on TV advertising. Now, most of this affects bigger, if you like, brands, the sort of the Pepsis, the Cokes, the larger crisp brands and so on and so forth. But I think the reason it's important for everyone to understand that is that retailers have started to change their mentality. So they're always on the lookout for good quality alternatives to products which might be high in sugar or fat or in other ways unhealthy. So suppliers are reformulating their products to a certain extent in the same way that they did when the soft drinks tax became available. But if you're a healthier product, there are more places on the shelf now for you within retailers, so it could be an opportunity for many suppliers. Now I just wanted to touch on a few aspects of marketing for the UK. Obviously, being successful in the UK market depends on a lot of different factors, but probably the most important thing is point of difference. So it's not really possible to launch products in the market without being able to demonstrate why a stockist should list the product. So if it's just another version, a Me Too version of existing products on the market, then if it could be supplied at a substantially cheaper price point, they might be interested. But otherwise, they really want to know why your product is going to make a difference to the shopper and to the retailer. So to get the attention of a buyer, I think there are a few things that you need to do. You need to show how it's going to meet a gap in the range of the retailer. So perhaps there's a gap for an organic product. They don't already have an organic version, for example, or new flavors, or a different ingredient mix that looks healthier or more natural, perhaps, or something like that. How you can add value to the category. So the buyer is always thinking about his or her category. How can you actually add value to that? Increase the profitability of the category, if you like. What needs are you going to be satisfying that are not already being satisfied for the shoppers? So perhaps shoppers, you've identified that shoppers might need a more convenient solution to a certain type of food, and you're providing that. And you can then say to the buyer, you know, shoppers need convenience. This is not yet being satisfied. My product will do that. How you will attract more shoppers to the retailers. So sometimes this is an important factor. So if you're, for example, a premium retailer like Waitrose, they will also need to attract more cost-conscious shoppers to their stores. They don't want all the cost-conscious shoppers just going to Tesco, to the discounters and other lower price retailers. So perhaps you might have an offer which is good quality but a lower cost, and that would help to bring more shoppers to the retailer. And finally, how you can deliver more profit to the retailers. So that essentially means if you've got a product which you can argue will sell in good volume, but also offers an attractive margin to the retailer, because they're always looking at their category and how much margin they're making. And if you can increase the margin, you will actually, you know, boost the profits for the retailer at the end of the day. Obviously, pricing is pretty important as well. So the retail sales price has got to be attractive to the shopper, and also in terms of margin for the retailer. And imported products are definitely of interest for both retailers and consumers, especially, of course, when they're bringing something new. So that could be authentic recipes that are really bringing the culture of another country to the UK, and I think many of you will be in that position. But also products which just offer something different. Doesn't matter where they're produced. And in the UK, as I mentioned in our opening session, we're very, I think, cosmopolitan, open-minded about the source of products that we stock in the UK and that we want to buy. Of course, people like to support local farmers and so on as well. I'm not saying that they don't, but they're very open to imported products in the UK. And then once you've got a product listed, the key to success is really working very closely with your partner, with your importer, wholesaler, distributor, or the end customer, and doing joint marketing activity to get the product to get off the shelf. Distributors and retailers, this is some information that we gave you in the first session. Just a quick reminder: they want to know why consumers are going to buy your product. You'll need to make some allowance in your pricing for marketing activity. And I've mentioned a few areas where one would do that, but certainly, for example, in your first presentation to a retailer, you should be saying how you're going to promote your products as well. It's not just about, this is me, this is my product range, this is my company, but also tell them how you're going to promote, because they're going to be interested to know how the product will sell with consumers and that you're engaging with consumers. So this is an example of a brand that we launched recently with Waitrose. So we said we will start with some discount promotions on launch, and then at other times in the year we'll consider a partnership with the Waitrose magazine, which is a magazine which goes out to all shoppers. We had some dark ads on social media, which would be driving consumers to Waitrose. So consumers could swipe up from Instagram direct onto Waitrose's online website where they would be able to buy the products. We would consider online support on Waitrose.com's website, social media influencer campaigns, and maybe in-store sampling and tasting. Now, in fact, we haven't done all of those things. You might be thinking, I couldn't afford to do all of those things. That's not necessary. It's a question of just showing that you have thought of some things that you can do, which are going to promote your product. And when you're talking to a retailer, they just want to know that you've got that mentality. They're not going to be asking to see exactly how much money you're spending outside the retailer, but they do want to know that you're prepared to promote with them as well, to discount your products, at least on launch, to try and drive some interest. And we then talked about what we would do as a launch campaign in social media, on Google, and then ongoing brand building. So a content calendar, activity on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and so on. To give you a little case studies on this as well. So this is a company called Iliada, olive oil, which is a Greek olive oil, so a specialty product. So they came back into the UK market, and they got, with our help, some of their products listed on Ocado, the online retailer site. They had a different packaging format, so that helped to differentiate them. It's important in olive oil. It's very tough to differentiate, if you like. There's lots of olive oil there. But they used a tin rather than a bottle, and that helps differentiate them. Ocado has been the UK's fastest growing grocery retailer, and they then managed to introduce the 1 litre tin into Tesco, because it started well in Ocado. So these are the products which are listed on the Ocado website. So different formats, different sizes. Some of them more speciality, if you like, reporting to a particular region. So the organic Kalamata option, or the Kalamata PDO, the product with a designated origin, as well as the standard product, if you like, sold in tins in 1 litre, 3 litres and 5 litres. Having started a promotion campaign, Tesco then agreed to double the number of stores they were listed in, and there were then discussions with Waitrose and Sainsbury's. And the marketing activity comprised, firstly, what we would call a joint business plan with Ocado, so a promotional plan to support all 5 of the listed items, developed a UK website for them, and managed an SEO campaign to drive awareness of the Iliada brand. So we promoted particularly the theme of Greek olive oil on Google, so that consumers would find the Iliada brand as high up on Google as possible, and then click on the links to Iliada to buy it direct from them or from stores. We did dark ads via Instagram to the right demographic, and then gave links directly to Tesco, Ocado and Amazon and so on, and worked with influencers. So initially with some micro influencers, and then with in stage 2 a leading influencer in healthy and plant-based food, to drive engagement and to help to drive sales via the retailers where we were listed. So the results were that Iliada olive oil moved to page 1 of Google when it comes to the search term Greek olive oil, and it was actually above 100 before the campaign started. So now people were much more aware of Iliada if they were searching for Greek olive oil on Google. The ad sales campaign worked also extremely well, and working with influencers on social media is a great way, and not necessarily an expensive way, to to really demonstrate the food values of your food products. So this is an example of an influencer called Lucy and Lentils that we worked with, and you can see in the left-hand picture that the Iliada brand was clearly sort of shown in the imagery, as well as the soups, the meals that were being created with their products. Lots of people saved the recipes from this influencer. Sales went up by nearly a quarter, which were driven by these marketing campaigns, the influencers and the ad campaigns. And also, importantly, the retailers respond very well to that, because they can see that you're taking this action. They can see that consumers are engaged with the product, and it demonstrates success. It demonstrates the fact that consumers are responding to you, and that then helps you in your conversations with other retailers. So those are some key ideas for some of the tools, I think, to be used in terms of marketing, which could help you. Not necessarily all of them, but certainly managing your social media profile and driving people to your sites is going to be an important tool. That was what I wanted to go through with you this afternoon. So I hope it's been interesting and provocative. Very happy to take your questions and to hear more about some of your businesses as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon, very much. That was extraordinarily interesting, I have to say. A lot of knowledge to take. I hope our audience enjoy very much, and I would like us now to bring them all so they can ask the questions. Alex?
Hi, Drenka. I'm just going to be promoting our participants to panelists.
Thank you. Could we remove the presentation so we can have more to see our audience? Well, whilst we're waiting, Simon, it seems all very complex when you look how many demanding tasks you have to do before you to get in the UK market. But I believe once you get used to, you know what you're doing, it's not that difficult.
I think that's right. I think labeling, I'm sure that for most of the suppliers, they're already doing all of those things already. You know, I went through some of the detail just to explain, but it's I think the important point to make is that, you know, the UK is not different from radically different from anywhere else. So anywhere else in the EU is an identical process to go through. And you know, once you're up and running, it's very straightforward. Again, there are some restrictions on some types of products, but they basically just limit where you can sell your products. So again, for most suppliers, they don't need to worry about this. And marketing, you know, I think that it's a tool. You can use it. It's important to do something. It's important to decide what's right for your business. But it's, you know, that's something which you can use your imagination. I think one of the great things in the last few years has been the democratization really within marketing. So it used to be all down to the big brands who had big pots of cash to promote their products, whereas obviously in the last few years, smart brands can be just as effective as big brands by using social media. It's more about being agile and versatile. There's one example actually, a company called Little Moons in the UK who entered the ice cream business with mochi ice cream, which is a Japanese style of ice cream. They're like small balls of ice cream, and a very, very small brand set up by a brother and sister, certainly no bigger than many of the producers I'm sure who'll be online now. And they got a small listing in Ocado, and then a trial in Tesco in just a handful of stores. But they then invented their own TikTok campaign, and on TikTok the campaign went viral. So people were sharing it on social media. People were getting obsessed by it. Tesco noticed this. Tesco then decided to give them a national listing because they knew so many people were talking about these mochi ice cream balls. The company sold about a year ago in excess of £100 million valuation. And mostly that had been driven by a TikTok campaign. So essentially the product was great, but it was a very, very tiny business. And suddenly within 2 years, it exploded because they'd used social media in a very clever way. So I think, of course, not every company can do that. And a certain amount of luck was involved. But it just goes to show that if you use tools in the right way, you can perhaps do more than you might expect.
Yeah, very interesting. For example, Alex, how we are doing?
Right now, I've sent out everyone the opportunity to become a panelist. So far, it's just a question of, for those who'd like to ask questions live in person.
So everyone who is listening, all people can ask the questions?
Yeah,
Well, shall we? So everybody's there. So it's interesting. I just want to mention, while Alex is still, it's a very interesting story about Cambridge gin. Just happened that I live in Cambridge in the last 4 or 5 years, and they just started, husband and wife started the business in their garden, introducing the beautiful different plants, mixing with the gin. And now, after a few years, I would say even 4 or 5, they're everywhere. You know, that beautiful light blue, which is a color of Cambridge, and the way they do it, it's so different from everybody else. And you see, sometimes in the branding, introducing new products is also important to distinguish yourself from everybody else, even though you start with your husband. Now the big, only in a few years' time. So you see, there are lots of different, the UK market is quite interesting market there's for everyone, I would say. If you really love your product, you're determined, you know the market, you can succeed.
Yeah, I think it's the critical thing is to be careful about, you know, what your route to market is, to really get a good understanding of where you think your product can sell well. So Tesco, you know, the big supermarket with 27% market share is not for everyone. It's not for most people probably right now. So don't just think about the big supermarkets because that's the, if you like, the volume opportunity. Just think where can I sell my product, and build your credentials through that. Start small and grow from there.
Excellent, very good advice. Right. Well, I see here Marco Nikolic, where he's there. I don't know if he would like to join, but Marco is his company is one of the FAO projects, and they have fabulous hummus, which they will be attending and showing. Hello, Marco. So
hello
he's also FAO, and we would like now to see you. You would like to hear from you, and please ask the question. You're the only one with the hummus. Apparently hummus is everything. Free this, free that, free everything is fabulous. I haven't tried, but I believe what Marco said.
You will try soon.
I will definitely on Monday.
Okay. Hello to all of you. Hello to all of you, and thanks for a great presentation. A lot of new data. So I heard something interesting regarding oatmeal. Since we have our hummus with chickpea crackers, and one of the ingredient is oatmeal. So my question was, should we highlight oatmeal as how to say, sorry,
as
allergen, but we have certified that this oatmeal is gluten-free.
Right. Okay.
So the question is, even if it is certified that this is gluten-free, should we bold it or highlight it?
It would be worth double checking this, but I think that if provided you can say it's gluten-free, you wouldn't need to call it an allergen, because the allergen that they're concerned about is gluten. So
yes, but we have issue in EU. The EU how to say, government or whatever, they say that we need to bold it for EU countries, even if we are paying much higher price for oat, which is certified gluten-free. And we know that only allergen in oat could be gluten. So this is a tricky question from my side.
Yeah.
And for EU markets where we are already exporting this product, we need to highlight this.
And what's that? Even though you're free from gluten, so gluten is not an allergen. What's the reason they give you for that?
Because regular oatmeal could have gluten-free, and could have gluten inside from other ingredients. And they insist to be bold even if it is certified gluten-free. So we find a way, and we write it in on our label that it is oatmeal without gluten-free, oatmeal gluten-free, but it is all these words are bold and highlighted.
Sure. Well, if there's some technical reason why they're saying you should do that, which obviously wouldn't be the case if it was gluten-free wheat, for example, or something like that, then I guess the same thing would have to apply in the UK. So, but in essence, that means no change to your packaging because it's the same message.
I don't know. Are the let's say UK law and the European Union law regarding labeling are the same? Are they on the same level? Yes.
Yes.
Then
So
probably we need to do it the same way, like for
exactly. So I think in essence it means no change needed. So I suppose that's the good thing. But if they're finding a reason why you need to declare that as an allergen, then I think the UK authorities would think the same thing too. It may be something to do with the content of the ingredient itself, something very specific, I don't know, but UK would follow the same system. We wouldn't diverge from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was the question. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Look forward to tasting your product too. IFE.
Yeah.
Good. Well, now I'm going to bring. Hello, Peter.
If I can interrupt a meeting for a moment.
Yes, you may, Peter. Peter is also part of the FAO project, and we are very much looking forward to seeing him next week. So, Peter, would you like to ask a question or share about your company?
Yeah, I have just a small question. Our main business is IQF fruits, but I have a question regarding the confiture or jams that we are also producing and that we are going to exhibit at IFE. And about the future potential cooperation, what is the, let's say, situation with sending samples to United Kingdom? For example, our confitures needs sanitary inspection, for majority and license for import. So I just want to check if it is the similar situation with UK, like it is in most of the European Union. They require the inspection and analysis of those. Or if there are some small volumes of samples, for example, 1-2 jars, are they going to, let's say, close an eye and just leave it, to import it like that? What is?
Yeah, I think often these things are almost a question of tested and see. So if it's literally sending through a small package of samples, I think that's worth trying without doing anything. In terms of the legality on a more sort of formal importing relationship, the UK is going to operate in the same way as the EU on that.
Yeah, of course it is, a bigger volumes and the legal import, then it should be tested. But I'm just asking,
yes,
because of those small samples, 1 or 2 glass jars, when they are delivered as a samples free of charge, without any commercial value.
Yeah.
Are they, so
I think it'd be unlikely they would get stopped and queried on that basis. So we've certainly we receive a lot of samples which might fit into a similar type of category to yours without any issue. Especially if they're ambient, if they're chilled or frozen, they tend to excite a bit more interest. But if it's just ambient, shelf-stable jars of jam, just a small quantity, no commercial value, you should be okay.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, thank you. That was my question. Thank you for all the presentation.
No
How
problem.
did you find Petra presentations?
Yeah, all of them, are really helpful. Especially, I'm looking forward to to tomorrow ones that is regarding the frozen. So that is, our core business. But all of those previously, especially the ones when talking about retailers in UK, those all were really helpful for, I believe, all of us that are going to plan to expand to UK market. So thank you for that.
Well,
okay, pleasure. And I think I answered your query on VAT as well on email. So yeah.
Well, Simon, if we have any questions, we can, our companies could send, and you'll be delighted to answer before Monday.
Yeah, sure. We do have one on the Q&A as well.
Oh, yes, that's correct.
I'll just read that one out. So it says anonymous, so I don't know who it is, but it says interesting. What comms channels will be suitable to target Gen Z? So I think the answer to that is predominantly Instagram and TikTok right now. So Instagram is probably the dominant social media channel, but TikTok is fast catching up. Obviously, it's live stream content. YouTube would be another, but probably Instagram and TikTok would be the two main channels to use more so than Facebook for Gen Z.
Thank you, Simon. Well, I would like to bring Vukašin Seeds Mill. They have a very interesting juices products, which I like the design. They're all colorful. They're like, you're looking at the raspberries. You look at the package, you see raspberry. That's how I memorize when you taste, you even more remember that packaging. So Seeds Mill, Vukašin, you're gone. Would you be kind to open your...
I'm here.
Hello. So do you have any question for Simon? And will you be kind to share with us a little bit about your products? And we are looking forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, I will just shortly, we are producing fruit purees. We are also producing baby food, but we are coming now with mostly because of these fruit purees for adults. But my question is regarding certificates, because we had already some attention from UK market in previous fairs. We were exhibiting in France, Germany, and Emirates also. So one of the questions raised every time, and this is BRC. So we got contacts with retailers, but also with some of distributors, and all of them were asking for BRC as exclusively BRC. So we are not quite sure, because we are certified with all FSSC and other certificates, but this was kind of obstacle, because especially one of retailers, big retailers in UK, they were, no, if you don't have BRC, we are stopping negotiations. So is it really like that with all retailers, all channels, or this was just like bad luck with these guys? So just that.
Are you selling own label products or branded products?
Branded.
Okay. So I mean, it's if it's own label, then it's black and white. It is impossible to sell own label products without BRC certification to the big supermarket chains only. If it's branded business, their preference is BRC. Some may insist on it, but it's not absolutely mandatory for them. So sometimes they will be okay to list products which don't have BRC certification but do have similar levels of certification. And then I'm talking about the big retailers, the Tesco, the Sainsbury's, the Asda, and so on. But in terms of other customers in the UK, in terms of smaller independent retailers, Ocado, the health food channel, and so on, they don't insist on BRC at all. So basically, they want to know what certification you do have. They want to see that you have quality products and that they're certified and inspected, but they don't insist on BRC. So it's become more and more important, especially for the bigger retailers. They don't like to take risks. They don't want to, if they can possibly avoid dealing with non-BRC registered suppliers, they will. But I would say that if you think the UK is an opportunity for your business, you may well satisfy most of the BRC requirements anyway. And it might be worth pursuing BRC certification if you already have other standards. You may find maybe you've got 80% of what you need for BRC, and you can just register and do one or two more things, and then you've got the certification you need.
No, we will do that for sure. If we start well, that will be the next step. So, okay, thank you very much for
Simon, how long takes to when you apply for the BRC? How long takes before you receive the one?
It's a question of several months, because you need to go through a process. You need to demonstrate you've passed certain steps. You need to then be inspected by an auditor, and then obviously that needs to be validated by the BRC organization. So it's a process, really. I guess it could be 6 to 12 months or something like that, depending on what your starting point is, whether you're starting from zero or you already perhaps have certain requirements already covered.
In that case, do they come to visit the producers or not?
Yes, they would normally do that, and normally not from the sort of head office in London, but they normally have if you like, auditors who are accredited as BRC auditors in different countries, and they would then arrange for someone locally to inspect you and grade you, and then that would go back to the BRC organization.
Well, excellent. We learned something new today. At least for me, it's new. That takes that long. Right. Any more questions? No. Right. It seems we have lots of participants, but they don't know any. I don't see it. Alex, do you have any?
No, I don't have any questions, and I haven't had any new requests to become a panelist in order to ask him.
Okay, thank you.
We can answer that. Perhaps people will be thinking of some of the more practical questions for them when they're at the show. And obviously we'll hope to meet most of you, if not all of you, during that time, and we can obviously answer any questions then.
Okie dokie. Well, I would like to, if there are no more questions, Simon, we are going to have a very busy next week. 3 days of fair, 2 days of preparation, 1 day when it's all finished, just summarized. And I'm sure that the UK market will be delighted to see the companies from Western Balkans, and lots of new products, which I can see. For me particularly, I see lots of unusual for the health and organic and well-being, which Britain is actually very keen, particularly after the COVID, isn't it? So
Absolutely.
On that note, I would like to thank you very much for today. This is the last one we have done with you. We'll see you next week from Monday at the IFE. Thank you very much to all who contributed today, who asked the question, who were listening to us. And also, this wouldn't happen if we didn't have our wonderful people from the British Serbian Chamber of Commerce, Tiana, Alex, Tara, who actually help that this smoothly is run. Once again, wishing you a very good afternoon. Thank you.